right. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see, well, everybody that's got their camera on. Good morning to you. Everybody that doesn't have their camera on, get them eye boogies out. Let's get ready. So this month, we're actually going over the shift book. If you've been following along, then you know we're covering pages 100 to 158. Excuse my very rude cat. This is actually, I think that this section of the shift book is very important to us right now, because it's literally talking about listings and advertising your listings and where you need to be at on the market as an agent, what you need to be aware of. So if we start on page 100, the section that we're covering here is called the close. So how many people are good at closing a conversation every time you talk to somebody to get that appointment?
Nay.
We got one nay. Is anybody a yay? Or what?
Nay.
What would be some of the biggest struggles when so let's say that you go on and let's not say an appointment. Let's say that you meet somebody who mentions that they want to sell their house, whether it's a phone call or just in passing, and you have a legitimate good conversation. You give them some good tidbits about the market. What is that hang up that's right there at the end would say that your biggest struggle is with even asking for the appointment? Like, how many people actually ask for the appointment, or how many people are like, oh, we should get together? You leave it open-ended and then it never actually closes.
Nerves.
Mm-hmm.
I leave it open-ended. I'm trying to get better at that.
Yeah, open-ended is my go-to. If I can't give you an ability to say no, then I didn't get rejected. Makes sense, right?
I know they say a lot of people in sales that the good closers in sales are really, like, think about the car dealerships. When you go to the car dealership, those people are not letting you walk out of that door until the manager comes and talks to you to try and sell you the car. So it's like really aggressive. I hate to say it, but you got to be aggressive.
They take your keys. They take your keys. They either lure you with, let me get your windows washed, your tires checked, or let me just check out your car if you're using it as trade-in, and they literally hold your keys hostage until they know it's a no all the way.
So I go to script practice, so I'll know what to say. And one of the things they always suggest is that you ask questions and you keep asking. So if you keep asking questions and you keep them engaged, then they will eventually be able to open up to what's going on. So one of the things that people will do, because they're used to salespeople, they'll say no, So, well, what's your objection? Is it because you're not ready to move? Is it because the price? And once you start asking these questions and then start fine tuning it, then you'll get to it. So listen, I can meet with you today at 3 o'clock, or is tomorrow better? Now, trust me, this came with practice, because that's one of my problems is the conversion. So I had to constantly be in these courses to figure out where I need to go. And it basically is about finding the root of the problem. Why don't you want to do it? That's really what it is.
And that really is what it is, because as it points out on the very next page, when it talks about like how to use scripts, it says, don't talk, ask great questions, listen with good intentions, mimic, mirror, and match, and practice daily. And the reason why we want to do that is because when we come across too pushy, then we're coming across salesy, and it puts people automatically on the defense. And we're trying to build a rapport, because ultimately we want to work with people who want to work with us, right? I'm taking everybody's silence as a yes. So when you get these great scripts, so there's a million scripts out there, right? You can literally toss a ball up and it will land on a script. So there's so many scripts out there. Bill Crespo in our office, he has some really great engaging scripts. I do encourage everybody to kind of shop around and see what works for you, but don't venture off too far from the basics. And I say that because sometimes we can talk ourselves out of a deal faster than we can into a deal. So it's good for us to keep where the fundamentals are, because those people are successful for a reason. There's a reason why they're called the fundamentals. And two, this will allow you the opportunity to really master the fundamentals and then build off that versus trying to create and do something on your own, because we all think that we can do it better than the next person, but somebody was successful for a reason. So we really want to try to make sure that we focus on that. Does that make sense for everybody?
It does. Can I just put in a word for scriptsjedi.com? Because that is done by Chris Hurley, who is a KW person. And so not only does he have scripts for us, but we also break out in rooms and we practice. So it's not just to know the script, you gotta be able to practice and come across with someone. And he always gives suggestions. Now, it's at 8:30 in the morning, but it's worth the time.
It's good for it to be first thing in the morning so you can get the rest of your day going. Can you put that link in the comment section for everybody so we can all reference to it? There we go. What other scripts does everybody use? Anybody tried a script that just definitely did not work?
I don't think I've like used a script.
You wing it?
I hear myself.
I got you.
Okay. I
That's
don't,
Stephanie and Una, I already know.
I haven't used scripts like I should, but I find that I'm Cragen.
Sorry.
But when I'm talking to somebody, like, I mean, I've been in corporate for so long that I feel like I naturally have kind of a flow of like, what do you need? What do you see happening?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, for instance, I just had a Opsity lead, and she was so excited, and she told me that she clicked a button on Zillow and got pre-approved. So I said, you know, that's great and all. I said, but usually people are looking for local lenders, and, you know, I really would feel more comfortable if you could pick your own lender, but I'm here handing you over to Cragen, who she spoke to, and she has about 6 months of work to do. So instead of me just saying like, okay, I'll see her in 6 months, I waited till the next day and I text her saying, hey, I spoke to the lender. I know that we have some work ahead of us. So if you have any questions, I'm still here. You know, I'm not here just for you to buy a house. I'm here for the process. So I think I'm just making up my own scripts.
Well, in reality, you still have that fundamentals. And honestly, when it comes to working with buyers, especially if they're new buyers, it is a lot easier to win over that client. I'm sure if there's any tenured agents on here, they would agree with me. But when we're dealing with sellers, we're dealing with a different, I don't want to say a different breed of people, but I do, simply because we know that they've already bought a house. And if you're a newer agent, then you're already thinking they know more than I do in real estate, when 9 times out of 10, they really don't. So when you're trying to close for those appointments, with getting in front of their face and saying, hey, pick me to sell your house. Let me show you why you want to pick me. Like, how do we go ahead and close for those? Because the buyers just, a lot of them are just like, well, let's just find somebody who's willing to work with me, especially if they are coming from a situation where they've been working on their credit and they're not quite there yet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Who's all going on listing appointments? What does my crowd look like? Who wants to go on listing appointments?
I would
like to go on listing appointments.
Everybody's hand should go up. Y'all excuse this cat here. She's very mischievous. And if I feel like if I don't hold her, she's going to start pressing buttons on me. So when it comes to engaging in different conversations, let's say that you meet somebody who's talking about selling their house and you want to go ahead and try to close for the appointment because you feel like it's solid. One thing that you want to recognize is their personality and body language. So if you have somebody that is real like, and like, hurry up, let's get through this conversation so I can move on with my life, how would you respond to try to close with them? Or who first can recognize that personality?
It's a D.
Yeah, it is a D. So how would you close a D? Angela, what does your classes tell you?
Oh, well, it's funny because we're going over the disc too. My other early bird class I go to at 6:30. So when you deal with these, you have to recognize that for them, it's about time. So you have to be succinct. Okay, so I understand you want to purchase your house. I'm so glad you have called me. I know your time is precious. How about this? Why don't I get together with you tomorrow so I can sit down and we can review your house, what it looks like, what you need to have done. You know, you go over that and you make it quick. Because see, I'm a D, so I know I don't like to waste time, you know. So when people call me, I have that same thing. So get to the heart of it quickly. And you know, they don't like the fluff and you know, and
Exactly. They don't need the fluff. They feel like if you're giving them fluff, then you're trying to blow smoke up their butt, right? So you got to cut through it. Now, if you have somebody, let's say we have a personality where the person is very, very soft spoken, but very caring, talks about all the memories that they had in the home, how long it's been in their family, like what kind of personality would we say that that is? And this person, y'all talked for a good 30 to 45 minutes, and they just shared everything that they could about their family and the house. What kind of personality is that?
Is it S?
Mm-hmm. Now, how would you close an S, Shelly?
Give them all the fuzzies and butterflies and I'm your family and I love you too and all of that.
Invite them to the cookout, right?
Yeah.
And some people you're going to have to do that with. You're going to have to sit there, even if it doesn't match your personality. Like when I took my disc score, and I haven't taken a recent one in a while. So when I took my disc score, it was 5 years ago, but I was a high CD, which means I'm just, you know, a dominant control freak, you know, it makes no sense. But it's outside of my comfort zone for that warm and fuzziness, because I'm a nice person, but I'm a nice person like right in front of your face. Like outside of that, like I just kind of want to be left alone. I don't really put myself out there to cater to like the warm and fuzzies. But as successful agents, we have to do that. We have to show these people that we care. And sometimes it means just going that extra mile and spending a little bit more time with them. But you don't want to fall in the trap where all they want to do is spend time with you, and now you have a friend and not a client. So that is a very fine line that you have to walk. This is Murder Mittens, guys. She's very rude. So trying to talk her out of the computer. She hasn't been in my lap the entire morning, but as soon as I start this video, she wants to get up here. So on page 101, they actually have a list of different types of closers that you can use. So it's a good idea for you guys to read these over and decide what personality applies to which close, and then practice those so that you can get a good feel for who, so you know what to pull out of your bag when the time comes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good girls. And then it goes on to talk about, you know, cultivating the lead, because a no is not really a no, it's just a not right now, right? So if you know somebody wants to sell their house, but they're a little on the fence about whether or not it's the time, about whether or not they really want to, you have to make sure that you take that into consideration, because you want to know what their motivation for selling is. Most of the time, like if you're dealing with an older client, they might be wanting to sell so that they can retire and move to a different state, or downsize into a smaller house, or be closer to their kids, because, you know, as they get older, their health gets less, I don't know my words today, but you know, they're not doing it, they're not as healthy as they would like to be. So, but at the same time, they've been living in that house for, you know, 20 plus years. So there may be some serious attachment to that home and the fear of change. So you have to focus in on why they want to sell and still be there to cultivate them to help that transition be better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does anybody have any experience with working with older people?
I worked with a couple who's moving from Massachusetts to Smithfield.
Mhm.
So it's because they want to be closer to their grandchildren who want to be in Virginia Beach. But I also realized, because I did have one of those clients that wanted to talk to death. If a person is very attached to their home, I try to use different words. Instead of calling it their home, I refer to it as property. I don't do it, harshly, but I'm
Right.
just trying to click, something so that this is to try to take away some of that, I've been here 40 years type of thing, and
That's a good
I,
psychological approach. It helps
yeah.
them start to create separation with it.
Right. And so it's hard, it's really hard. It's hard when it comes to trying to um, clean the house out. I mean, I've been in houses that people want to sell. I would never, as an agent, allow this to, the house to look like this, but they don't want to move. They don't want to change, so
Yeah.
that's the way it is, really.
And when you have somebody like that, it's a not right now, but you also have to make sure that you utilize your time wisely, because if you spend too much time trying to motivate an unmotivated person, then you're going to be missing out on opportunities with other stuff. So you have to be able to recognize that. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be on your call list. I'm just saying you want to make sure that you're not wasting so much time with them and not getting anything out of it. Marlon, yes, we are reading the Shift book. Boop, boop. So the Shift and the MREA books is what we're teaching this class off of. So if you don't have them, get them. Thomasina has a couple copies of them. You can usually weasel a copy out of her. So just be really nice and buy her coffee.
I wanted
Yeah.
to touch on the old people, the older
Yes.
Generation. I think with them, they have much less endurance than our younger buyers. So what seems like unmotivated is just that they don't really have the time to invest in the constant denials. So like, whereas a younger couple is more aggressive in the market, like, oh, well, let's put in another offer somewhere else. Let's put in another one somewhere else. They don't have that same level of endurance, because it's like, okay, I've lived. I just want to find my home to retire in, or to, live the rest of my days in and be done with it. So it's more of just us understanding how we should nurture them from a place of just allowing them to somewhat be in their comfort zone of not being as aggressive with them, because they're not going to receive that well. Then they'll, retract and feel pressured. So it's just a matter of nurturing them at their level. Like if they say, okay, well, that offer didn't get accepted, but just give me some time. It's okay to give them that time, but just remember to just check back in. Even if you're not asking about the house, just, hey, how's everything going? I just wanted to check in and see if you guys are doing okay. Just to give them that comfortability of being inside of their comfort zone, so that they keep you fresh in their mind when they do decide, okay, yeah, we're ready to jump back in and try this again.
Exactly. And usually when we're dealing with the older generation, their money's different too. Like a younger person might be able to be more aggressive with their offer because they know that they've got time to earn that money back. Whereas an older person is at a different stage in their life, and they're counting down versus counting up. So they're thinking, I know that this is how much money I'm getting. I can't afford for this to fluctuate here. Like they're a little bit more on budget. So in this very competitive market, that may be discouraging for them too. So taking that extra time and reading the room and understanding what your client's needs are is really what's going to set you apart as far as being a good agent goes. So when it comes to closing, it talks about in here whether or not you want to try to be at a table or be on a phone call. And one of the things that they pointed out when I first read the expression, I was thinking, in a buyer's market, you're going to want to be at a table because you have to try to talk the seller into selling the house. But I was actually wrong. They talk about wanting you to be at the table in a seller's market, because in a seller's market, and a seller is going to think that anybody can sell their house. They just have to list it. So you have to actually work harder to show why you're different from the other agents. And I thought that was a really good point to make, because when we're talking to sellers in a buyer's market, which that's what we will eventually be shifting into, right? As we're starting to see the market change, it will become a buyer's market. So at that point, you want to make sure that you are more choosy about what listings you're taking on, because if you can't sell it, then you are spending money and you're not going to get a return on it. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I do have a question.
Ask
In
away.
talking about, not so much as a question, but just looking for additional insight. So when we're discussing selling yourself as far as selling points, specifically in a seller's market,
Yeah.
what would be examples of things that would make you stand out outside? Because everyone's marketing pretty much the same. Everyone's, you know, we've all learned how to do real estate the same. So what would be those caveats that would make you any different than the next realtor that comes to their door?
Well, the one thing that we have to take into consideration is, even though a lot of us are using the same marketing tactics, not a lot of us are actually talking about it. And I think that that's really what the difference is. I think I cannot tell you how many people I've came across where they have told me about previous experience where an agent just put paperwork in front of them and told them to sign. They didn't discuss comps. They didn't discuss marketing strategies. They didn't discuss how the process goes and what to expect during different multiple offers or home inspections or anything along those lines. And so I, even though we feel like all of us are doing that, the majority of us actually really aren't. So just simply taking a step back and kind of explaining the process is going to set you apart from majority of them. One thing that Manish and Nikita do, and it's just a phrase, right? Because like we said, we all have pretty much the same tactics. They call their marketing seller's advantage program. So they have a buyer's advantage program and a seller's advantage program. And the things that they discuss is their marketing strategy in detail at that point. And they cater it to each property so that the person feels like they are individualized and they are getting that little extra professional finesse on it. So just developing a good listing presentation is really going to set you apart from your competitors, because most people don't. Most people just show up with the paperwork and like, sign here and I'll get it sold for you, because they're not wrong. The market will sell it, but are they getting the most and the best situation out of it?
Can I add something too? So with this market changing, the sellers are now actually interviewing for more than one seller, more than one agent. So one of the things that was suggested in one of my classes was we really need to use the research that we have in our realtor.com and also in our MLS to fine tune, okay, the market is doing this at this percentage, and this is how many houses are actually doing this, and it's actually here. You have to, that the fact that you know that information for their area will definitely set you apart from somebody else who just wants them to sign the paper. So it makes you the expert, because a lot of these sellers now are going to the fact that, oh, that person's, sold that house $30,000 above what you're telling me I can do, and blah, blah. So you have to show them numbers.
Yeah.
You have to show them this is what the market is how many houses are actually still on the market, it's an area you want to go to, and that would set you apart. At least they know that you know what you're talking about. It's not just like, I just signed a paper, I want to get money. Because if you have to come up against another agent, that really makes a difference in how you are going to present your case. It's basically what it is.
Exactly. And you want to make sure that you're studying the market anyways, guys, because how are you going to recognize the trends for shift? Because when ultimately, which we're getting ready to get into pricing, you want to make sure that you're priced ahead of the curve. Like, you don't want to sit there. And so when you're looking at your market statistics, you're looking at the average price for that particular area, the condition of that property for it to sell as quickly as it sells. And you're looking for how many days on the market it sits. I walked into a house yesterday that was a supposed flip. It was a flip, but it wasn't a flip. It was a terribly done flip. Like, they slapped some paint and they did the kitchen and they did a really bad job. It was just, and it was sitting next to a house that was a smaller home, a ranch style house that went under contract within 3 days. And this one has already been sitting on the market for over a week. And so you have to start questioning when you start seeing these properties, you have to start questioning what's going on here, because couple months ago, you could sell a pile of poop for top dollar, and now you can't do that. So you got to start recognizing those trends. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you are putting yourself into the market and making sure that you understand your area and getting these statistics from our local MLS or RPR, wherever you want to pull them from, just to make sure that you're getting everything that you need. And I have it set up on my MLS, which you guys can do the same thing, where my MLS automatically generates these reports for each city. You can even do it for a particular neighborhood. So let's say that you want to start tackling your neighborhood where you live, because that's the smart thing to do as a realtor, is tackle your own neighborhood. So let's say you want to keep up with the statistics in your particular market neighborhood. You can set it up to where you are seeing the monthly trends so that you know how many days on market, what the houses are selling for, and you'll see the pictures of them so that you can understand what the competition is. Does that make sense for everybody?
Sure does. Thank you.
So hold on, I'm pressing buttons. I got my book on my keyboard. I'm such a nerd. All right, so it also discusses a little bit about internet leads. How many of us are utilizing our social media and our website to generate leads? I mean, I have it, but am I utilizing it, right?
I mean, not to its full potential at all, but using it, sure.
Yeah, like it exists. That's
Right.
about it.
Right.
And one of the things that it points out in this book is talking about your website. So anytime you do anything on the internet related to real estate, you should always be driving your posts back to your website, because your website is where you're going to lead capture your information, correct? So if you're out doing a tour of a property and you're doing a quick live, or you're creating a post about a listing that's coming up for sale, or you're at a networking event, or whatever the case may be, the posts are great, but if it doesn't drive people back to your website, you are not capturing the information. It is literally just a post. And then what does your website need to actually look like? Like trying to determine your website and whether or not it's going to captivate people and give them information is a fine-tuned process. Like it's not going to be perfect as soon as it comes out. But most people, when it comes to real estate, if they look at a real estate agent's website, they want to see houses. They want to shop around houses. They want information about the neighborhoods and statistics about the market. Other than that, they don't need a whole lot of fluff. Fluff is still good to have there because there are going to be people who need that, but your website should focus on the needs of our clients, which is understanding the market in their area. But every post that you make on social media, it's not going to generate you any leads unless you have it to where it's going to actually capture those people's information. How many of you get responses if you make a post on Facebook? Let's say that you're at an open house or you're at a networking event. I actually know that Stephanie's really good about this. So if somebody posts something on social media and somebody comments and responds, how many of you guys are actually responding to those comments or reaching out directly to those people?
I would say I do.
It's engaging, right? The more engagement we get puts the algorithm into play for that social media platform. So it constantly recirculates your post. And on top of that, you're building a relationship with the person that's making those comments, right?
I gotta tell you, I'm not good with that. I don't
Angela,
I'm
I don't
advertising.
accept that. I don't accept that. You are all about everything. I don't accept that.
That's my weak point. That's my Achilles heel. Oh my
Well,
gosh.
When COVID
advertising is
happened, we
something I
all had to
haven't
get
done.
good at it, didn't we?
Yeah. I'll fight with, that'll be my thing.
Yeah. I don't accept that. I want something different next time we chat. When it comes to your social media, so COVID happened and it put all of us indoors, which means that social media just kind of blew up overnight for everybody. And where it was once targeted towards like the younger generation, or at least according to them, it was targeted towards us, since they keep telling us if we're over 30, we're not allowed to be on TikTok. And yet I'm on TikTok. So But when that happened, doing virtual real estate was really important, especially when we have companies like Zillow and some other companies that are trying to squeeze out agents altogether. The only thing that separates us is the fact that we are a real human being with feelings, and we can understand and interpret somebody else's feelings. So how do we put ourselves in their face if we're in a virtual world? And that is through our social media platforms and our website. So it is important to have them and have them set up. There are different programs that you can set up to where they post for you automatically, like In Stock Social. So that's definitely going to help you out. There's another one that I can't think of the name, and somebody tell me what it is that posts our listings.
Back at You Media.
There we go, Back at You Media, and that sits there and posts our listings from our office in there. And it's really important that you have those automated ones, that way you have a constant presence on your social media. But you do have to take it a step further. Like, you do have to put yourself out there. The post can be simple. You can, I honestly, if you see me post something and you like what I posted and you want to do something similar or the exact same thing, I'm never going to get offended, because my little 2,000 friends, or how many ever friends I have, is not the same as your 2,000 friends, right? So the likelihood of you stealing my client or my lead it's not a reality for me. It's not something that I'm personally concerned with. So you can get inspired by other agents, because you're just here to grow. I know on Instagram, I follow a lot of out-of-state agents like Miami or California or Atlanta. I follow those big markets that I like seeing these agents doing their thing, and I get inspiration from their stuff as well. And I see what kind of posts they're posting and what's getting the most likes and the most interaction, because it's more than just likes. We need that interaction with the other people to try to make sure we're being engaging as much as possible. You feel me? I realize I say, does that make sense a lot? So I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna start saying, you feel me?
I think that's good. I also think it's important that we show a personal aspect of ourselves too. That kind of helps people feel like they know you, which makes them more likely to reach out, because they feel like you're a person and not just a business trying to sell yourself or sell them a product. So not necessarily having your post. Yeah, just balance it and have it related to real life, or find a niche or something that you are interested in, and use that, when you post or when you make your TikToks or your reels or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be specifically just to real estate. They'll see you as an actual person.
Exactly. Does anybody know a good ratio between business and social? So like, you have your real estate page, right? And then you have your personal page and you have your personal social media, and they kind of intertwine. But you don't want all real estate on your real estate page. You don't want all personal on your personal page. You kind of want to intertwine them. So what would be a good ratio for your real estate page? How many real estate posts versus how many personal posts? That shows you're not a robot.
I mean, percentage wise, I would say like 80-20.
I was just going to say the same thing. 80-20.
Yeah, so 80% business, 20% I'm a real life human. Look, I got a dog. Look, I have a cat. Look, I got kids. They're still alive too. That kind of stuff. Or little achievements, right? So like, when we do our award ceremony and you get an award, people love to see you successful. I know haters gonna hate. I know that that's an expression, but you're gonna get a lot more love than you are gonna get hate. So when people see that, they flock to you. They're like, oh, she's doing really well. He's got awards this year. I want to talk to them. I want to see what they can help me do as far as real estate goes. I know every time I post something after our award ceremony, I always get several people that hit me up and like, oh, I see you doing big things. And I'm like, yeah, all right, big dog, let me sell your house. Like, come on. So it does work, and it is positive. So haters gonna hate.
Would it be 80-20 depending on the page that you're on? So, and this could just be my mind working backwards. But when you're on your personal page, would you consider 80% personal, 20% business, and then flip it around when you're on your business page? Or are you saying 80% of your business on your personal page?
No, I say 80% of your business on your business page with
Okay.
27% personal.
Personal,
Yeah.
okay.
So whatever page you're on, that
Yeah,
bigger
flip it
number
around.
applies to that page.
Yeah, okay.
Because you don't want to lose friends if you're always
Right, because you're
about
always
business.
talking about business. Right.
And you also want to change your approach a little bit with the different posts that you're creating, right? Because when you're on your professional page, you're going to show them a little bit of personal stuff, but you're not going to show them your Friday night getting smashed in a club either, right? You got to pick and choose what it is that you're choosing to post. And the same thing on your personal page. When you're choosing to post something professional, you want to make sure that it's something that's not going to bother your friends. It's something that they can actually find useful. And it could be simply a tip about, hey, it's that time of year again, let's get our HVAC system service, or did you know the market is up 20%, down 5%, whatever the case may be. You want it to be something that they're going to benefit from, not always real estate. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So let's get into pricing. How important do you think pricing is in this market? In this market where we are right now?
Super important. Important.
So let's say that you have a fantastic listing coming up and it's in a decent neighborhood with a decent school system. Let's say that the market has been hot this entire time in that neighborhood, that houses are going under contract within the first week, closing for about 10 to 15,000 above their original list price. Today, where we are right now, how would you price that house?
Did you provide us with like a median of the neighborhood?
I didn't give you a number, but
yeah.
All right, so let's give you a number. All right, so let's say all the houses are pretty much the same. We're not dealing with a weird comp situation, so we got a 3-2. It's a rancher. Most of the houses go under contract within the first week. The average price has been about 300. However, they've been selling for about 5 to 10 more than what they originally list for. So the average sold was about 300. But anytime somebody listed it, it went for 5 to 10 more. But in today, where we are right now, how would you price that house? Do you price it at the 300 from which it's been selling? Do you price a little bit lower, hoping to drive it up? Do you price it a little high, expecting it to go for higher?
I would probably go right between 305 and 307.
Samantha says right at price. What about everybody else?
I would say that
That
price.
price.
Right at price.
Because today's market is not the same that it was 30 days ago. It constantly changes. The mortgage rates are changing. Things are not stable. So you want them to have the house sold. You don't want to get stale by sitting on the market too long. Now there's going to be some pushback. They're going to say, well, they did it for so, but you have to explain where we are, the market.
Right.
Um,
Anybody else?
I kind of think different. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Let's hear it.
In today's market, I would say 295.
Give me your reasoning.
Well, I would say 295 because today's market is a little bit slower, interest rates are a little higher, so you don't have as many buyers, so you won't have as many offers, but you still want to hit that 300 mark. So it kind of depends on the seller's bottom line number. But I think if you price it at 295, you'll bring more people, and they'll probably be they'll probably be motivated to kind of really want the property because they probably thinking they get it at a better deal. So it kind of start a bidding war with a small amount of agent people coming across. So I think you're probably laying about 305, 307. People will still go over 295, but I think 295 will bring more people.
Okay. And one thing I want to point out here while we're deciding on our price, how many, all right, so we're all pretty buyer heavy right now. We can all agree on that, right? How many of y'all have buyers that are still trying to get a deal? Just mine?
Oh, no,
All of them.
absolutely.
Still trying to get a deal. So I'm honestly, I'm gonna have to agree with LaShawn on this one. I think I personally would, even though my seller's probably gonna want me to push it to that 300 mark, if I can get them to agree to it, I would probably price at 295, simply because of the interest rates. And we are starting to see a shift. The last thing I want to do is have the property sitting on the market for more than a week without an offer, because that is a messy label right now, because we are still in a seller's market, but we're just not quite where we need to be. And I want to drive that price up. I want the market to drive that price up. I don't want to start too high.
When he started talking and saying what he said, it made total sense. I was like, this is a smart
it
move.
starts to add up, because if the market is going to drive, people will pay for the house if the house is worth it, right? So let the market, let the people offer more, because you just don't take the first offer. It's that simple. And that's how you explain it to your sellers. Be like, look, just because a lot of sellers, when you price, like, let's say 300, right? If they say, well, why aren't we pricing at 300? I don't want somebody to talk me down. Well, we're not in the market for you getting talked down. If anything, we're in the market for you getting talked up. So let the market drive the price up. We price it too high, then we might be shooting ourselves in the foot, and we might be sitting on the market, and then we're going to have a challenge at selling your home because we weren't priced properly. So we want to be effective in our tactics. And a lot of times just explaining that to them and then letting them know, we don't have to accept the first offer that comes through our door. Typically speaking, I list my houses on a Thursday. So I have a open house on Saturday and Sunday. That way we get enough opportunity for enough agents to try to get in there over those 4 days and have enough contracts in by Monday or Tuesday, so that they can make a more informed decision on which offer they want to accept. And usually just taking the time out to explain that to them, I get my price point every time. I have a listing that received 8 offers on it. And I think I priced it pretty fairly, just slightly above the highest price that sold in that area. And we'll see what it closes for, but so far, so good, So you really want to make sure that you drive that price point home, because what happens if you're priced too high and you're sitting on the market, you've wasted a lot of money. You look inadequate to your seller because you're not selling their property, and they think you should be doing more, and that somebody else is going to do a better job than you. And so you're out that money. So, and if you think, well, I didn't actually pay for any advertising, your rain dues is your advertising. Like, you pay $1,000 a year in rain dues. So you're paying $1,000 a year to advertise that person's house. So please do not think that it's not an expense on your part. And if you pay for any type of marketing where you're pushing it through social media or anything along those lines, like, that is money. If you're going to host an open house yourself, you have your materials for your open house, you have your time, money, and effort that you spent for that property to push that property out. You have your flyers that you printed out. Like, please do not think that you're listing that house for free, because you're not. It's never for free. So time is money. Any feedback on that one, guys? What do y'all feel about houses that you see have been on the market? Let's say the house has been on the market for about 3 weeks, and your buyers originally had their eye on it, and then it sat and you watched it go through several different price reductions throughout that time. What does that make y'all think about that property? What does it make your buyers think about that property?
That something's wrong with it.
Yeah, something's wrong with it. You haven't even seen it yet, and you're already thinking something's wrong with it. So what do? As soon as you walk through the door, you're like, oh, I can see why it's sitting on the market.
Right.
As soon as you see it, like the house that I was talking to you guys about earlier, as soon as I walked through the door, the smell hit me, and I was like, oh, I can see why it's sitting on the market. And it came out my mouth as quickly as I thought it. And I mean, I probably shouldn't have said that, but I knew my buyer was thinking the same thing, because her face looked like this. When price is important, that's all we can
Always
do.
a motivated seller. If there's like a lot of price decreases, maybe they just need to up their, maybe they might even be willing to take a lower offer because they just need to sell quickly.
There you go. That's a good thought process to have, because it's good to pitch that to your buyers when they say it.
Yeah,
Like,
those
'cause
people looking for a
where our
deal.
first thought is there something wrong with the house? But where our second thought is what actually comes out of our mouth, well, maybe it's a motivated seller. Let's see what we can work out.
Mhm.
That's a very
Right.
good point.
Yeah, sometimes I call the agent. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes I call the agent, and sometimes, people go into contract and then things don't work out with the buyer, and sometimes they just kind of fall out of contract and they go back on the market. It might not necessarily be wrong with it. So I always ask what's going on with that situation, if it's ever been under contract. If it has been under contract, do they have a clear termite and moisture inspection? And if they have those things, then since it's been back on the market, I go into negotiation and I kind of try to negotiate closing costs.
Yeah.
And then see where we can go from there. Because usually when most people see something been on the market for a while, they don't have as many people come back around putting in offers.
Yeah, because all of our buyers are looking for a deal, aren't they?
Yep. So
They're like,
I
hey, you
usually-
can get this house and your closing costs covered.
Yep.
Let's do it. So all right, so let's say that we've closed the for the appointment, our sellers are meeting with us, we've secured the price where we want to price it. But their house, they live in it. Like, it's obvious that they live in it. Now, this can be a very sensitive subject for people. And one expression that we use quite a bit is the phrase depersonalize the home, but that doesn't always drive it home, does it? How many of y'all walked into some houses where your buyer was so distracted by the contents of the house that they couldn't actually see the house?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I've had that experience before.
Yeah. I walked into a house once, this has been years, and then looking back on it, you just kind of question the type of person, but like the house only had like a couple solid rooms that were clear, but several rooms, including a screened-in porch that was attached, that was from floor to ceiling and wall to wall with pathways of like shelving with just stuff stored. And like it was so dark in there because there was no ability for light to even exist. Like, the light was on, and so you're just kind of like tunneling your way through the house. It's like, I don't even know where I am. I mean, it was something out of a TV show or of hoarders, or like, I was like, where's the bodies? Like, I feel like they're in here. Are they alphabetized? Like, how do we have this? It was very organized, right? So I don't want to sit there and act like the person was just junky, but they were clearly a hoarder, a pack rat. Like, they had all of this stuff in there. And that house, this was still a buyer's market at that time, but that house sat on the market for years because they needed to clear it out. There was no getting around it. Like, the comps supported the price, but you couldn't see the house. So nobody's going to you can't do a sight unseen when you're physically there and you still can't see the house, right?
I went to a house for my seller. I told you she was up in Massachusetts, so I went to look at it. And this was a house that was an estate house. 3 sisters owned it, and they just wanted to sell it. I spoke to the agent, and so she said, "Oh yeah, we just want to sell it. It may look a little disheveled." Well, I don't know what she talked about, a little disheveled, but as soon as you go on the property, there was dirt, there was bags and bags of garbage on the property itself, outside, having gotten to the house.
Wow.
Go into the house, every room had stuff. And I don't mind. I thought what she was telling me, it was like boxes. It's boxes. You put the boxes along the wall, everything all over the place. So I told my seller, my buyer, I said, I'm not even gonna take pictures of this. It's a waste of time. So if I can't sell it, that's one thing I learned, you get sold twice. One of the ways we get sold by the agents, because we have to go in, we have to see it, we have to like it. And like, it's like, oh no, but it looks similar to a hoarder's house. And these girls didn't really care. Girls, these are grown women. They just said, just sell it, but take the garbage away from the house, something. I don't know. I sometimes question the agents, do you see who's going to buy this like that, so.
Well, there's definitely plenty of agents that will list a house just to list a house. So, and I'm not saying.
I
that-
literally just, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Una.
I would, hold on. Crazy. So as you were talking, Stephanie and I are saying, well, I said, I'd walk away from that. I wouldn't even, because I'm not putting my for sale sign with my name outside this house and saying that I'm okay with the condition, right?
But let's say it's that seller that was very soft spoken and loved their house, loved their memories there, and they have to sell. How do we, as an agent, dance around this delicate situation while being direct to let them know that these things need to happen and being that resource to helping them get it done? Because if the seller is willing to do what it takes, are you willing to take the listing at that point? And what would that look like?
So I have a listing, a client that I'm working with right now, and we're in a similar situation. That's a house that he had with his ex-wife, and it's very emotional, and he kind of started hoarding. So he's been working through it, but there's a lot of stuff still in the house that he's just kind of, it's not his, it's like either his ex-wives or his girlfriends, that he's like, I just don't even want to deal with it. And I said, obviously selling a house empty without all these things would be better so they can really see the house and stuff. And I said, if you want, I can help arrange to have somebody come. Either like, I found a couple of numbers of people that come and they'll just take everything out. And he was like, you know what, if somebody else could just come in and just take care of that for me, I'll pay them, that's fine. Like, I would really appreciate it. I just can't bring myself to do it. And that was it. And I told him too, if we do that, it'll sell for more money. We'll have more traffic in there because they can actually get a better view of the, open it up to more buyers than just investors.
Exactly. Samantha, do me a favor and put those contacts in the group chat so that we can all have those contacts, because you're going to come across it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. It might be a year or so from now, but people do exist that will clean out a house. However, they're trashing it, right? So if your seller still has memories in there, they need to go through it ahead of time to at least take what they want out of the property, because people who go in and just like overhaul the house, they're not being careful, they're not being delicate, they're not being sensitive. I mean, maybe a company like that does exist, but I'm sure they are a lot more expensive to go through your stuff, and it's a lot more time consuming as well. So when you come across somebody who does need to sell their house and they have a situation where they just, it's bigger than them, sometimes it does take being that resource to just to try to orchestrate and line things up for them so we can get the house ready. Now, you may just walk into a house where they've got 4 kids and, we're doing half in person, half at home schooling, and mom's making 3 meals a day and dad's working full time. And that, I know y'all seen that house got French fries and goldfish in the cushions, right? So it may be a house like that and isn't as delicate, but it's still one of those, hey guys, let's talk a little bit. Like, I know you've got kids, they know you've got kids, but we don't need to know you got kids kind of conversation, and just making sure that they're prepared. I have a listing coming up in Chesapeake where both work full time, but they have a 1-year-old who's still nursing, and their house is dedicated to their kid. There is toys everywhere and it's a lot going on. And so what I had suggested, is them taking the time to get everything cleaned up and organized and magazine picture ready. That's what I always call it, magazine picture ready. Like, if you're flipping through a magazine at interior design and you stop on the page, like, does your living room look like this? How can we get it there? So what I had suggested to her is, when we get ready to list, her not being there for the weekend with her son and like going to her mother's and stuff like that. And sometimes just making those arrangements, because their life is so chaotic. It means that she doesn't have to pack up her kid and clean up the house every single time to try to to try to still allow them to have some kind of balance. But we do have to have those tough conversations. Like, if there's toys everywhere, like, not only is it a trip hazard, but people aren't going to be able to look past that. You know what I'm saying? What are some other personal items that typically sellers might have out, not thinking anything of it, that might be better off packed away? And
Like
it's always
their,
gonna be sensitive.
like their awards and stuff, especially like if it's military, like their whole name, it, you know, it could really tell their history of where they live and can tell too much about them. And, you know,
Private information needs to stay private, right?
right, right.
And
I showed a house once that had the man's entire watch collection sitting out in his bedroom, and it was an open house.
yeah,
I was like, daggone, I wouldn't trust it. Just
Yeah.
without my agent working for me and letting me know, like, hey, put this, like, I would innately know to put it away.
yeah, anything of value, prescription medicines, anything of private information, all of those things need to be dealt with care and put away somewhere safe. Because weapons, yep, Tanya brought up weapons, anything that is just going to potentially be stolen, or, you know, your private stuff, guys. Like, you know, if you have alone time or whatever, like, nobody needs to know you have alone time. And your closet is not always safe. Like, your dresser should be safe. So being able to put these things in your dresser, because people aren't supposed to be opening your dresser, but they're going to open your closet. I opened a closet once and somebody's grandma was in there. I don't know if it was a grandma, it could have been anybody, but it was an urn in the closet. As soon as you open it, it's like right there, giant urn. And I'm not bothered by it, but your potential buyer might be bothered by it. I had an agent once who went on a listing appointment, and listing appointment was going really well. And she walked into one room and the dude had swastikas everywhere. And she's Black herself. So she was like, we should really depersonalize this room, you know, because if whatever your political view is, it is your political view. But the last thing that you want to do is deter somebody else from being able to buy your house because you are so strong in your beliefs. So you want to make sure, even though it could be a very sensitive subject, that you drive that point across. Because what we don't do is discriminate in this industry. We're not going to not sell to a house to a particular person or whatever. Yeah, political yard signs. Tanya said she went into one that had a knife collection setting out. Let's think about safety for this too, guys. Like, it's not just about stuff being stolen, but if a weapon is out and you're with a buyer that you don't know that well, like, you don't want to put yourself in a predicament where now all of a sudden your life is in danger. We're not going to do a duel, a knife fight, because like multiple knives are out. Choose your weapon, like it's Mortal Kombat or something. So you want to make sure go ahead.
I
Steph.
totally went to an open house. No, I'm lying. It was a showing. And the agent called me as I was pulling into the driveway, and she's like, hey, listen, I'm really sorry about this, but my client left her gun on the nightstand. Can you put that away before you bring your buyers in? And I was like, oh. So yes, I did, but I recorded the whole thing, and no, I did not touch it. I totally grabbed like a napkin and was like, you know, like, I watched too many crime shows. My dad taught me better. I was like, no, I shouldn't have even touched it. But like, what if I was just trying to, you know, think about other people that it could have come after me. What if they had a little and they didn't notice it or whatever?
Exactly.
So I definitely put it away. But for the love of all things, like, that's what you forgot on a showing? Like, you just left your piece just bam on the nightstand? Oh, okay.
Exactly. So these conversations are important, and as we've all discussed, for very many different reasons. So you want to make sure that you take the time out to have that conversation with your seller. Because like, if you go to a listing appointment most of the time they've already cleaned up before you got there. So if you walk into a house and it looks absolutely fantastic, you want to make sure you drive that point home, because I've walked into houses where it was absolutely fantastic and I'm like, oh yeah, you guys don't need to do anything. This looks perfect. And then they just got comfortable afterwards. They're like, Holly told me I was good. So like, dirty laundry left on the floor or dishes in the sink. All of these things can deter a buyer because it affects the environment, it affects the atmosphere, the smell, the overall, do they keep their house clean? Like if they don't clean their house, do they take care of their house? Like, do they even make sure that nothing's leaking? That kind of thoughts. So you want to make sure that you try to stay ahead of that. Now let's talk about staging and vacant properties. Who is all about staging and who is like, meh, and then who is against it?
I think people should start thinking about staging
Mhm.
because houses are not flying off the shelves like they used to.
Right. I think it helps you get an idea of where you're going to put your furniture, or you know what I mean? Like if you're the buyer, you can get a better visual of how things are supposed to be if it's staged.
Exactly.
And I was going to say that, it's, I feel like it, and I haven't been in any situations because I am just working on my first listing basically. And, staging came up and I was like, if you were out of here, maybe that is a thing that we would, and especially it's Hayes and, so need people to get the warm and fuzzies out there. But yeah.
I think at minimum, especially if you're on a budget, I think that virtual staging is great too.
And there's a lot of really good products out there for virtual staging. And some people, like, let's say that the house isn't vacant. Let's say that they have some decent pieces. Like sometimes having a stager, because there's different levels of staging. You can have a stager come in and stage with their own personal furniture, just kind of rearrange things to make it look a little bit more open and stuff like that. You can have them fully staged. You can have them stage partial rooms. I think if you're going to stage a house, at least stage it for the pictures. One thing that I like to do is have it staged for the first week. That way you can get some good solid pictures, because most of the stuff is going to be virtual at that point anyways. That's the first thing people see is the pictures. And then, when that first week of showing should be your strongest week, and going ahead and making sure that gets put in there so that people can really visualize themselves in the home. And it's really going to set the tone for how the listing's going to go. So I'm definitely a fan of staging, but has anybody ever priced that out yet? Because that bad boy is expensive.
It is.
I haven't. No.
So just to kind of go back to your seller advantage program, what I have seen some listing agents do is they tier their commission, right? So the listing agent negotiates the commission for both the buyer and the seller's agent, right? And this particular agent tiered his commission status. So like, we can do it at a 5%, but this is what it's going to get you. We can do it at 6%, but this is what it's going to get you. We can do it at 7%, and this is what it's going to get you. And I would suggest, if you want to be an agent that offers staging for your properties, that you offer a tiered commission, because you can put that cost you can work that cost into your commission breakdown. So you pay for the staging up front, but you get it because you're getting 7% instead of 6% standard or whatever.
How much
You
is the staging?
negotiated, right?
How much is the staging?
I had a
Generally.
seller pay for a staging and it was like almost $1,000, and all it was the living room and the dining room, couple of pieces in the kitchen, and I think the primary bedroom. And it was such a insignificant amount of stuff that I was just like, that's a waste of money. But it was a unique shaped house. But I've also been in properties where the staging was just stuff on the walls and a couple of plants or whatever, and it looked really nice. It still was very inviting without actually having furniture in there. So there's different levels, and you just want to kind of shop around and find a good relationship with a good stager who is going to come through and do a good job.
It's hard sometimes to deal with a listing. I lost a listing because the woman had 2 grandchildren, her daughter, 2 grandchildren living with her, a condo.
Yeah.
And one of the situations where the toys and everything, I said, well, look, just put the stuff away and clean your closets and everything so I can take photos. So she didn't do that. I was going on for a couple of weeks and I had to leave out of town. And so I was going to price it $10,000 more than what she got it for. The very next week, another condo in my same subdivision, which lived in my subdivision, sold for the price I would have sold hers for. But because this woman, the other agent, couldn't even do an open house. So, you know, as it is in most condos, we're not allowed to do any, you know, signs outside, things like that in most situations. So all you have is the marketing. You know, you can't, you know, online marketing, I couldn't do an open house. So it's like, it's gonna be hard. And I suggested to her, because she had heavy, big pieces. And it took away from the width of the living room. I mean, you couldn't really see it, you know, how big her house was. And she just couldn't keep it clean enough. And even my husband, who has a visual eye, I don't have the eye for it. I have to see stuff. He told her, you should put this here, put this there, just trying to help out, you know, without having to have the paper and stage her.
Yeah.
She wouldn't do it.
But you know, you lost a client, but you gained time back too, because you could have been wasting your time trying to sell that house and struggled that way. So you got to take your blessings where you can get them. Any more thoughts? This is pretty much wrapping up today's class insights.
Yeah, no, my thought is that this was great. This was an absolutely amazing class and I took a lot from it. So thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
It was definitely great. And I actually didn't even think about staging with pictures and plants. That seems very simple and affordable.
Not only, so the first time that I did it, I helped the buyer buy the house that had it. And then I turned around and had a listing right afterwards and I did it myself. So, you know, when you're doing enough listings, you don't mind investing in a few things. And so I did it for the townhouse that I listed right afterwards. And it is very, very effective. Like, it was just a couple of wall hangings and a plant and a couple of side tables, and then maybe some placements on a little breakfast bar or whatever. And it's very efficient.
Oh,
and then
cool.
you get those little command strips, right? So you're not even damaging the wall. So
Right.
very good stuff.
Great. Well, thank you.
Very welcome, guys. I'm so glad everybody came out. This is my biggest class so far. I got bloop, 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 like 12 of y'all. I like it.
Aw, thank you.
All right. Well, I will see you guys next month. Make sure you check the comment section for any of the contact information for the people. Like Samantha came through. She gave us 1, 2, 3 different numbers for people that help like haul away stuff and clean out stuff. That website for scripts from Angela is up there. So make sure that you guys jot those down. Okay.
It's junk in the wall.
Other than that, enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you. I couldn't come off mute fast enough.
Totally okay.